Here we are. Okay. Hi.
Hello.
There it is. And then we pin the comment. All right. Hello, gang.
I'm using my ring light because it's so dark in here now. It's getting to be that most unfavorite time of year.
Yes.
Evenings. Ugh.
I also have my ring light, but it took me like so many. I had to move it so many different ways just so it wasn't creating this big donut right on your face.
I know. Look at it. It's like I have donut eyes. I'm going to take them off. And then I can't see anything. So I hope you all look pretty because I can't see you.
They're all gorgeous. Everybody's
They're even more gorgeous now.
everybody's very, very gorgeous.
Can't read no comments, no nothing.
Gang, we have an amazing show for you today. JP, are you on TikTok too? I don't know what those words are. I'm an old man. No.
But
I
that would be happening there because how else would you watch Claudia Conway?
what?
How else would you watch Claudia Conway?
Oh, yes.
Social media is a gas, guys.
Yeah, no, I'm crap. I barely make Instagram work. I am slowly leaving Facebook, and Twitter is a mystery. She's so good at Twitter.
Twitter's the easiest one.
Letters and words, letters and words. It's the old Beauty and the Beast quote of Gaston. How can you read this thing? There aren't any pictures. It's a lot of that. It's a lot of that. So let's see. I know our special guest should be joining us shortly. But in the meantime, there's so many. Oh, hi, Courtney's mom. What else is going on? Nothing. Nothing in the world is new.
I've been in the booth all day.
Yeah. No, everything's good. Voter registration deadlines are happening. They are hitting. So get on it.
Fast and furious.
They are going to, the states will be dropping like flies with their voter registration deadlines. So if you haven't already registered or you know people, I think at this point, y'all are registered. That's my guys. But your friends might not be, or your family members. So make sure they go to nerdsvote.com or your voter registration site of choice. Maybe your mom would prefer to visit the League of Women Voters. They're an excellent group. Visit them and get her to register.
Rock the vote, a la MTV, depending on what generation she's from.
Yeah. Just speak to them. Speak to whatever they need, whatever site pleases them, and get them to vote. All right. Without further ado, we have an amazing guest here today. You might know him the best as Batman. Batman, you say? Is it Batman? Without further ado, Kevin Conroy. Hello, sir.
There we go. Now I've got
It
you.
is.
Can you see me?
I sure can. Can you see us?
Yes.
Awesome. Welcome
There
to
you go.
Between Two Nerds. Thanks for coming.
Good to be here.
Awesome.
Oh, that voice!
I know. Oh,
There you go.
there we go. A little volume up there. Splendid. So, Kevin, how's pandemic life treating you?
Hasn't it been weird? It's so strange.
Put it lightly.
It's this new world reality. I mean, I'm doing everything virtually. I created a little sound booth in my home, and so I'm still recording. But it's this strange, socially disconnected world that we're living in now, which I'm not used to. You know, I grew up in New York, and I'm I'm a city guy. You know, I'm used to interaction. I'm used to people. I like people, and this is strangely disconnected. So it's kind of odd. But
Yeah.
I have a great ritual. I get up every morning. I go for a 3-mile walk, just to get out. You know, to keep active, to keep functioning. But it is weird.
Yeah. it has been very peculiar. I mean, we're city people as well, and even though we live in Glendale in the suburbs, but it is weird. What? Glendale's not the suburb?
I don't live in the suburbs.
Highland Park's kind of a suburb.
I don't know.
Okay.
LA in general is a suburb, let's face it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
there's like a dot of city, and then everything else is
Yeah, 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 yeah.
just a version of suburb.
I mean, but I'm lucky because I have a presence in LA. I work here, but I live in New York. I grew up in New York, but I happened to be in LA in February when all this started.
Right.
So I have a lot of family obligations back east. So I ran back, took care of some family obligations in Connecticut. And then since then, I've been here. So I had a nice place to be. I consider myself very lucky. I had a great place to, what do they call it? Settling in place, whatever.
Yeah.
I had a good place to do it. But I miss New York, and I miss my friends there, and I miss my interaction there. And I miss voting there. That's the wonderful thing. I love the big thing. Look, we're here to talk about voting, right? The big thing about voting, which I love so much, is the connection that we have. There are so few things that we still do as community that we, you know what I mean? That bring people together. And especially in New York, there's this wonderful sense of community there at the voting places. And that doesn't happen
what was
in
your
a.
polling place in New York like? Was it like a firehouse or an office building or a church or?
It's a community center. I live on the west side of Manhattan, and it was a community center in back of Lincoln Center. And the polling volunteers were almost entirely senior citizens. And so there was also, aside from meeting people you wouldn't normally meet, there was this transgenerational kind of thing going on, you know what I mean? And it was wonderful. Everyone, you had a real sense of involvement. And I missed that because, and this year I voted by mail, like everybody else.
Yeah.
And I missed that.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking last week about how you break outside of your bubble for a minute when you go to the polling place. And
You do.
You see people that are outside of your usual circles, not the people that you usually associate with on
Right.
social media and everything. It's the whole city, just all a microcosm right there.
And there aren't many opportunities like that anymore in our culture today. I mean, it used to be, I guess, that on a church on Sunday morning, people would interact like that, but that doesn't happen as much as it used to. That's the one thing I love about New York is that on the subway, you meet everybody. You interact with everybody. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is I get recognized a lot on the subway. People will be sitting across from me and go, "Are you Batman?" And then in the subway car, I have to do the voice, and then everyone freaks out. It's a lot of fun. But our culture, otherwise, we've become much more compartmentalized, tribalized. We go from our house to our car to our office to our car to our shopping grocery store to our car, and you don't interact with people a lot. Yeah. And but in New York, of course, that's not true. But that's what I love about living there.
In New York, you can just be walking down the street and be like, "Hey, what's going on in here?" There's like a spoken word thing, and you just end up sticking your head in somewhere, and then half your Sunday's been gone because you're listening to some amazing vocalist or listening to poetry or some weird, museum in someone's house that you just found, and it's such a great city for that. And yeah, I'm.
Well, some of the amazing I've seen some incredible performances on the subway in the subway stations, like Times Square subway station. Sometimes has amazing performers in there, and I love that.
I was uptown, and this guy was. I'm not a big opera. I don't know a ton about it, but I think he was a basso profundo voice. His voice was so low, and he was just I must have missed 6 trains just. And I had never heard that. I mean, I had never heard that level, that type of voice before.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I mean, you learn something.
I've done the same thing where I've gotten so into a street performer, I've missed my train. and I just stand there for a while and listen. I love that about the subway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a happy sort of mindfulness about that where you just get to allow yourself to just be distracted and focus in on one
Yeah.
thing and take that moment out of your day.
And
Yeah.
also an appreciation of the talent around you. I mean, some of these performers are extraordinary. And you think, wow, this person has so much talent. And they have to
Kids that are like
perform on the
long,
street like this, you know? Huh?
I can't. They're defying gravity because they're jumping and they're doing backflips and stuff. I'm like,
Yeah,
take all my money, take all
Hmm.
my
yeah,
money. So many and flexible, enjoy it while it
yeah,
lasts.
yeah.
For sure. So, Kevin, you said you grew up in New York. Do you have a early voting memory, or do you remember the first time you voted, or what sticks out as something interesting about voting?
I started voting really young. I mean, as soon as I qualified to vote, because I grew up in the 60s and 70s. I know I don't look it, but I'm a bit
Not at all.
older. I'm a bit older than you guys.
Huh?
So when I was in junior high school, the Vietnam War was raging. And when I was qualified to vote, I also was qualified to register for the draft.
Hmm.
And at that point, it was not something you wanted to do. I mean, it was at that point in the war, because it was the early 70s, the mid 70s, it was like winding down. And it was something that was really quite frightening. And so voting for the first time was a big deal for me. And
Yeah.
everyone was very motivated. There was so much going on in the early 70s. I mean, it was a crazy time politically. The political assassinations that had happened in the late 60s, and it was just crazy. So there was a strong motivation to be involved politically.
Yeah.
And everyone had a reason to try and stop that war, which was just grinding people up at that point. So I guess that would have been around 73, around 73. And the war ended right after that. So there was definitely a strong motivation to be politically involved.
Yeah.
And everyone was.
Totally unlike today.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm very heartened. Aren't you heartened, though, by the political involvement of teenagers today? I mean, I went to the huge protest last year for gun violence that the high school people all organized. And I was so heartened by that. I was in LA at the time, and I went down to join the march. And all of downtown LA, the whole city was packed with tens of thousands of people, every street chanting to stop gun violence. And I thought this was all started by teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And I really didn't think that, I thought Americans had become so seduced by our material comfort and our me generation, our self-absorption that everyone's so into, you know, their identity and their uniqueness,
Right.
that no one cared about community anymore. So I was so heartened by the fact that there is such a caring by teenagers. I think it's fantastic and totally unexpected. I thought that all ended with my generation.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I feel like that's always been the thing, though. It's like, you know, apartheid, there were lots of demonstrations. And I mean, I am really heartened because I feel like the temptations of having everything be on your phone and having it be difficult sometimes for people to, you know, you're not used to having the same kind of interactions all the time as you did
Right.
before our phones were, you know, in our back pockets all the time. And so to see people step around that and insist on in-person protesting and making things happen.
Absolutely.
Because we didn't have those kinds of temptations. It wasn't like I could just go home or just, you know, wander off on my phone. So I think it's extra heartening in a way because
I think it's part of that's part of what's wrong with us culturally now is we become so tribalized by the different websites and the different networks. I mean, it's sort of the Foxification of America, where everyone can go to the network that only speaks to their narrow interest, or everyone can go to a website that only speaks to their narrow interest, and that they never get exposed to anyone else, any other interests anymore. I mean, I still read the New York Times every morning. Not a lot of people do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really valuable to get, an array of opinions.
Yeah,
And
it's worth reading. Not only check out the New York Times, even check out Fox News now and then,
oh yeah,
and get sort of the balance of like, okay, well, what's consistent across these? Where's the spin? And be a critical thinker. I mean,
it's really
that's
important
what our democracy asks of us.
to educate yourself. But I think we become so tribalized in our own bubble. And so to see young people sort of smash those bubbles last year, and because of the violence in the schools, and say, we demand change, we demand to be heard, we demand that society deal with this issue, was so heartening. And I just loved what was coming out of the young people last year.
Yeah. And I mean, we've seen it continue into the protests of racial injustice this year.
Absolutely.
For everybody out there, if you're just tuning in, this is Between Two Nerds. It is a show brought to you by Nerds Vote, where we talk with some of your favorite notable nerds. Today, we have Kevin Conroy, Batman. If you have any questions for Kevin, we will get to them, or we'll try to get to as many as we can. Throw them in that little question mark box down the bottom, and we'll pepper them in as we go. Kevin, just a fun one. If 2020 happened in the world of Batman, which of Batman's rogues gallery would be the one behind it? Whose fault would it be?
Well, I think. Oh my God, are you kidding? I mean, it's like a cartoon of rogues galleries that's been going on. Now I'm going to forget names. What's the guy's name who? Oh, I can't. I'm so bad with names.
Looks like.
Yeah. What's his costume?
Yeah, it's.
The Calendar King comes to mind. Is that his name? Calendar Man?
What's his name? The Clock King. The Clock King.
Yeah.
With the glasses.
Yeah.
I mean, he is. What's his name? Who got convicted and Trump pardoned? What's his name?
Oh, not Flynn.
Not Michael Flynn. The other one.
Who's the one that got pardoned?
See, I'm blanking on names.
Oh.
With the funny glasses.
Yeah, the audience will know.
Roger. No, not Roger Ailes. Roger, the other Roger.
Roger.
Oh my God.
Stone. Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
He's Clock King. He
oh,
is.
Yeah. He's got the funny little round glasses. Yeah.
And what's his name? Ted Cruz is like Ra's al Ghul. I mean, they're all starting to dress.
Especially with the new beard. Yeah.
With the new beard. I mean, they're starting to grow the hair and dress. And I look at them and I think, this is a Batman gallery of villains. These are cartoon people now, But
True, actually, my boyfriend was saying that he's like, this is all turning into the comic books that I read.
it is.
As a kid, there's a virus and there's, people conspiring with, certain other countries and things like that. He's like,
it is. You couldn't write this. If you wrote it in a movie, no one would believe it. I know.
Yeah. I mean, I remember a while ago seeing, this was back in like 2016 when I saw the Lex Luthor becomes president comic. I was like, what? Just in a nonpartisan way, just making an observation.
Yeah, I know.
So, Kevin, back to the actual voting stuff at hand. So one of the questions that we love to ask our guests is, who are you voting for? But when we ask that, we don't mean party or candidate. We're asking, when you're casting your ballot, what people or issues are on your mind that you want that vote to affect?
Well, I think actually, boy, there's Boy, there are a lot of issues that are high on my agenda. I think the biggest one probably is what I've seen over my adult life, starting 40 years ago with Reagan, is a real erosion of the middle class, a real attack on the middle class. This myth of trickle-down economics, which has been completely debunked. It does not work. We have to reverse that. We have become an oligarchy of billionaires and worker bees. And when I was growing up in the 50s and 60s, there was a huge expanding middle class that everyone could aspire to be a part of, that you could work hard, you could go to school, you could get a job, you could buy your way, you could get a starter home and then buy up to a better home. And there was this ladder you could aspire to climb if you worked hard enough. That ladder has been ripped apart by, I believe, the super rich who've convinced the working class that they're working in their interests, but they're not. They've been trying to destroy the middle class, and they've done a very good job of it. So I think we have to readjust our tax code, and we have to readjust who we believe as our leaders, because this trickle-down economics theory is bull. It's been proven to be bull. David Stockman, who was the architect of it for Ronald Reagan, has admitted that he was wrong. It was all wrong. This Lafler curve, have you heard of that? Where the less you tax the rich, the more money it actually generates for society. That was how it was sold to people. Tax the rich less and it generates more money. It's bull. It doesn't work. If you tax them less, they put the money in their pocket. It doesn't, it just doesn't work that way.
It's so fun when they admit that in their retirement, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah, that
it's all
thing
about
from
their
40
retirement.
years ago that I introduced.
Well, there's not a mistake. It's not an accident that we have this oligarchy of billionaires right now. And look what happened in Russia. They did it in 20 years. They created an oligarchy of billionaires. And the Russian people let them do it. And we have let the rich do it here. And, I'm quite comfortable in my life. And I love, I've worked up from nothing. I started out as a scholarship student at Juilliard when I was 17. I got no help from anybody, but I got a full scholarship. But I got no help from any family or anything like that. And I've made my way in the world, and I've done pretty well. So I'm all for aspiration and for people, for a capitalistic system. I am for it. But I'm for a fair capitalistic system that really is open to everybody and helps everybody and doesn't rip people off and rape people. It's gotten so out of hand, and it's being sold to people, the working class, on this bill of goods that they're buying, and it's not in their interest. So I'm for capitalism, but I'm for economic sanity in the tax system.
Definitely. I mean, going back to the tribalism that you were talking about earlier, one of the things that is sort of like the smoke and mirrors game that keeps getting played on us is we are often pit against each other for silly reasons that aren't real at all.
Absolutely.
To distract us from the greater issue of they're robbing our pockets.
Absolutely. They've got us believing still in this myth of the welfare queen who is living off of the hard-earned tax dollars of the middle class and just sitting home and clipping coupons and living the life of Riley as a welfare queen. That person doesn't exist. The biggest welfare states in America are unfortunately the Trump states, the red states.
I came up from that situation, and it was never that. It was 100% a stepping stone. My mom used that to get back on her feet and, get us what we needed. And then produced two wonderful tax, but, we've all made our way in the world. We're all comfortable. I pay very high taxes. I'm a business owner. And, this idea that I think one of the things that kind of comes into it is that it's the wonderful thing about America is also the thing that's a little bit of an Achilles heel is that we're an aspirational country. People come here because you can come up from nothing, and that's not true in a lot of other countries. So you come here and your fortunes can change. And so that's so ingrained in so many of us that there's this aspirational thinking and aspirational voting so that people think, well, I want to be rich or I want to be successful one day and I don't want to have to pay a bunch of taxes or I don't want my money being taken away or me being told what I can do with it then. And so in the moment, people will vote against their best interests because somewhere there's a disconnect of like that you can be successful but also be kind and
a contributing person,
and contributing and you know that it's either one or the other, and that's not true. There's a lot of examples of people who have a lot of money who have given a lot back, but I always say I had this particular talk with a guy who worked at Best Buy, and he was a minimum wage hourly worker, and he was voting. We had a discussion and he was 100% voting against his interests because he wasn't going to make health care. He wasn't going to get paid a decent wage, but he was like, I'm going to be rich someday. And so there's like this huge gray area that doesn't get taken into consideration that, that seems to be this disconnect with people in voting against what they need right now.
And also this concept, people forget that everyone needs help at one time or another. No one is immune from misfortune. No one. And when misfortune comes, it always comes unexpected. It always blindsides you. And no matter how prepared you are, you can be wiped out. We've seen it a million times. And people need help occasionally. And our society needs help. We need a functioning police force. We need functioning firemen. We need functioning hospitals. We need good schools, good public schools, because even if you don't want to put your kid in a public school, you want the guy voting next door to you who went to public school to be educated, to not be a moron. You want the general public to be educated. So even if you're not putting your kid in public schools, like I went to Catholic schools, you want the public schools to be good because you want voters to be educated.
Yeah,
and you want a functioning.
It affects crime rates, and it affects what kind of people come into this country and stay in this country. What kind of people, how good are doctors and anyone, and just how to explain to somebody that lives in a different country that we get a different education based on the color of our skin and what part of the country we live in it's a very odd conversation to have.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing constantly that this lack of good education comes out in all ways. Everyone suffers when the education system suffers. Everyone. We're just not immune to any of this.
Absolutely. And we are seeing it so much now. I mean, I used to love it when the Tonight Show would do Heard on the Street. Do you remember when they go and ask people on the street? And they'd say, name 2 countries that border America. And people would go like England or Japan. And you'd think, can this person be that stupid? And then the audience would laugh. And I would not laugh. I would shudder because I would think, this is a voter. This is a taxpayer. This is someone who really has no clue of what countries border the United States. And, they would think it was laughable and they'd make a show out of it. But I found a lot of those responses frightening.
Yeah. Because, and a lot of it doesn't have to do with it's not that people are stupid. It has to do with that. It has to do with that. We force people to have such different priorities than elected. Like people are forced to have to worry so much about hand to mouth and paying those essential surviving bills that the idea of focusing in any way, whether it's you or your kids, being able to have the luxury, unfortunately, to be able to focus on making sure that you know your geography and history it's so it falls so much further down the list because we force everybody to be like, sorry, we don't take care of your healthcare here. We don't necessarily take care of excellent education here. We don't take care of a lot of the essentials that you need here. So you're going to have to struggle with those. But
Right.
It keeps you on your heels
Yeah.
all the time.
Right. Right.
Uh,
No.
for everybody out there, if you're just joining us, welcome to Between Two Nerds. This is a show brought to you by Nerds Vote, your source for voter registration information for cosplayers, con-goers, gamers, pop culture fans of all kinds, and animation fans, especially of our guest today, Kevin Conroy. If you have any questions for Kevin, you can throw them down in the question box. Kevin, I did have one that I wanted to throw at you. A lot of the people are just typing, who's awesome? It's Batman. Kevin's amazing because he's Batman. But we did have something a little more pithy. Let's see. Is there a particular actor or actress you have yet to work with that you would love to perhaps record in the booth together with?
Oh, wow. That's almost an impossible question to answer because there were so many wonderful actors that I would love to work with. You know, the amazing thing though about most of the shows I did were cast by Andrea Romano. And Andrea, for those of you who don't know, was kind of the gold standard of casting directors for animation. She was the best. And I hope she gets more involved again because she's too young to have retired and everyone's trying to get her to work again. But she would always bring in the most amazing actors. I would go in every week and I'd think, I can't believe I'm getting to work with all these wonderful actors. Every week was an acting lesson with people I'd work with. I mean, Mark Hamill, you know, Roddy McDowell. I mean, all these people. Ron Perlman. It was a crazy cast of just the most amazing actors. But who I would still want to, oh my God, who doesn't want to work with like Kevin Spacey, who can do anything, you know, or Meryl Streep, who can do anything. I mean, there are so many incredible actors, but
Miss Merrill is amazing. I love
oh
Miss
my
Merrill.
God, she's unbelievable. She can do anything.
Yeah.
But there are so many amazing actors. I'm constantly being just floored by what I see in performances. So yeah, there are thousands of actors I'd love to work with.
Awesome. Another random question. What does Bruce Wayne look for in a candidate for Gotham City mayor?
Ooh, I like that.
What Bruce Wayne looks for is what we should all look for. And that is the soul of the man.
Mm.
What you want is a good person, a decent person. Because they're going to make such extraordinary decisions. And you have to know that that is a good person making those decisions, that they are thinking of the greater good for the community. Because that's all Bruce Wayne is interested in. He's an entirely selfless man. He is, I look at him as like an angel of light. He's just such a good person. He's such a giving person. He's devoted his life to giving. And so many people go into politics because of what they can get out of it, how it will benefit them. And they get incredibly rich instead of thinking about what they can give to the community in being there. And that's what you need in a politician, is someone who wants to, it's about service. I always find it offensive that when the president walks in the room, they play, you know, Hail to the Chief, like it's this triumphal march of this general king. They shouldn't be playing that for that. He should be the ultimate servant for the country. He's there in service to the country. That's the way our senators should be. It's the way our representatives should be. It's the way a mayor, Gotham City should be. You're working for the people. There should be enormous humility in it. It shouldn't be about, look how great I am. They're going to play a marching band for me. That should be embarrassing to a politician, a really good politician, I think.
It's a great answer.
Thank you.
Um,
I'm going to turn on a light because it's getting very dark in here. Hold on.
all good.
Individual and also rich. The perfect example of what I was talking about earlier.
Yes, absolutely. Anybody, if you still have questions for Kevin, you can throw them in the bottom. I have been getting a few. I will try to get to these. I will be sure to pass along all of the compliments that you guys are sending, though.
Do the Batman voice.
Yeah, there
Is that better?
are a few of those. Yes, much better.
Sorry.
No, not a problem
The
at all.
sun went down and it got dark.
Yeah, that's why we have our our little illuminating devices.
There you go.
Because we have done a few of these in the dark, and yeah, that's what happens when the fall comes.
I know.
Yeah. We did have another question that I wanted to. Somebody asked, so I feel the need. Somebody said, "Have you ever considered running for office?" Or are you not that much of a glutton for punishment?
I actually, I would love to run for office. I really would.
Oh, wow.
I
You heard it here first, folks.
I see public office as public service. I really do. And as I mentioned, I went through Catholic schools growing up, sure. And it was the very old school traditional form of Catholicism, which was about service. It's about you are what you do. They will know you by your deeds. That's what's said in the New Testament. Mm-hmm. And it's about living. It's the Dorothy Day school of Catholicism. It's the Thomas Merton school of Catholicism. It's the service. It's the giving. It's the social activism of the 30s and 40s. You know, that was the school of Catholicism I was raised in, and it's very much in my my being. It's very much a part of me. I try to live my faith, and I'm quite proud of it. But I think the ultimate way of living that would be to perform some kind of public service, would be to work for the greater good of the community. But I'm not sure I have the slime quotient to deal with politics. You know what I mean? I'm not sure I have the slime quotient to actually run for office. Once I got in office, I think I'd be really effective, and I'd be a good administrator. But I don't know if I don't think I could get there. Yeah. Huh?
I think any candidate will tell you the hardest part is the campaigning.
Yeah, getting there. I mean, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do the sleazy, sneaky, the tricky dick kind of stuff that politicians do to each other. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, and so I'd lose.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I don't know if you lose. I feel like there's enough people that adore you already that,
Oh, that's nice.
Just give it a whirl.
Oh, yeah, just give it a whirl.
I mean,
we
could, city council is easy to start with.
That's
true. Especially if you're like me, you live in Glendale, and, and there's 6 people, Yeah, it's not a big deal. Kevin, do you, speaking of service, are there any organizations or nonprofits that are near and dear to your heart?
Yeah, a number of them. I used to, yeah, there are. Let's see, I'm trying to think what I do this year. It's the Actors Fund. I'm a supporter of every year. Mm-hmm. And there's year. Especially this year, my God. And I always think it's important to get involved in something kind of grassroots. And there's a school in Newark, New Jersey that I read an article about years ago, run by an order of priests who have taken it on as a mission to give a high-class private education to inner-city boys in Newark. And it's run entirely on donations. So I give to them every year, and they're part of a scholarship fund for them, because I so admire. They are living the New Testament. They are living the gospel, and I think it's so important that what the work they're doing. So yeah, I have lots of organizations. I used to give in the 80s and 90s. I gave a lot to AIDS Project Los Angeles and AMFAR, because it was devastating the acting community. It was just devastating. So yeah, I've got a lot of things that at the end of the year, I kind of figure out how much I can give.
Yeah.
Divvy up.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing is I feel like a lot of that budget this year has gone to politics. So I'm like, well, okay, we'll see what we can do.
I know.
Yeah. There was another one from, let's see. Oh, here was one. Have you and Mark ever, not for something official maybe, but have you ever swapped places and just seen how the roles sat on each other?
Are you kidding? We do it all the time.
I love it.
Ooh, Betty, get over here, Batman. No, we love doing that. It's so much fun. Are you kidding? When Mark and I get in a booth together, we are like 12-year-olds. We regress. Andrea always says she can't put us in a room together because we immediately become 12 and we start just goofing on each other and playing each other's roles. He is the most wonderfully talented, loving, generous, giving person in the world. I can't say enough about Mark Hamill. He's one of these actors. You know, I always have to tell audiences this at Comic-Cons. Actors are people. They're people. Yep. There are nice actors and there are mean actors. There are generous ones and there are selfish ones. There are ones you want to work with, and then there are the real jerks you just don't want to, be in the same room with. They come in all shapes and sizes. Mark is the most generous, giving, loving, wonderful actor in the world. A great example, when one day in a booth, and they were like, usually at Warner Brothers, they try to get everyone in the room together. So it's a very large recording studio, and there'll be 6 or 8 actors in there together. And what's wonderful is you get to react, and you get to act off each other. And at one point, we had one of these big recordings where there were about 8 of us in there. And I looked over, and Ron Perlman was giving a really great performance. And I looked over at Mark, and he was like this. He looked like a kid staring into a pet shop window. He was just amazed at what he was seeing, and he was so gleeful. And I looked over at him, and I burst out laughing, and it ruined the take for Ron. And Andrea said, "Kevin, what's so funny?" I said, "Look at Mark's face. That's not fair. He looks like he's 12. And everyone lost it because they knew it was true. But he gets such glee from the other actors. He loves watching good acting, and that's a wonderful, generous way to be, because if you're with someone who's that generous, it makes you be that generous, and it gives you more to work with, and so you have more to give him, and it makes him better. He knows that the more he gives, the more he gets. So it makes it a very creative atmosphere. So I was so lucky that Andrea would bring in such amazing actors who were John Glover. I mean, I've known John for 40 years. John and I have done like 4 different theater things together and 2 different mini-series together. And then we ended up doing the Batman series together. I've known John literally since I was in my 20s. Wow. Isn't that funny? We were at the Old Globe Theater in the Shakespeare Festival there in the 80s at the same time, doing a production of Much Ado About Nothing and a production of King Lear. He was Edgar and I was Edmund. I was the bad boy, he was the good boy. Mm-hmm. I've known John for a long time. So it's it was an extraordinary experience doing Batman because of all the wonderful actors that were brought in.
I mean,
Do you feel like did you experience any difference having worked with him sort of on camera, on the stage? Was it the same connection that you guys had behind the mics, or was there anything that was different once you guys were?
Well, with most, that's an interesting question, because I think with most actors, being in the booth, I think, is liberating, because you're living in your own imagination. You're creating a character with just your voice. And I've often seen much more interesting performances out of people in the booth than you would necessarily see on camera or on stage. I think that often happens, that actors feel more, less inhibited and more liberated in a booth. I've seen that. John Glover is not like that, because on stage and on film, he is completely uninhibited. He has no inhibitions at all. So he's always that way. You know what I mean? So John is just as crazy in the booth as he is on stage. He's wonderful.
that's a gift. I mean,
Oh yeah. It's a gift.
yeah.
But it's like he's a ham. He's a big ham. I once said, John, you're not a ham because you can't be cured. He just can't stop. Being on stage with him is dangerous. He's always doing something. It's wonderful. He's wonderful. He's wonderful.
Do you think that there is a return to the stage in store for Kevin Conroy?
That's not. I don't see it. I don't see it in the near future. But the last play I did Arthur Miller's last play in New York before he died. It was a revival of The Last Yankee, and I played the lead role, The Last Yankee. And to work with Arthur Miller on a stage production, I mean, it was like a dream come true. But that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Huh?
It's done.
That was a long time ago. Look, I've learned never say never. You never know.
Yeah.
I would love to do a stage play again. Who knows? Who knows?
After you run for your after you serve your term in whatever
Yeah.
office you serve.
After I'm mayor of New York, I'll think about going back to the stage.
Just to circle back to voting for a little bit before we let you go. Kevin, we get a lot of people in the comments and, in all of our different streams that say, I would vote, but I just don't think that my voice matters, or I'm not interested in either candidate. Or what do you say to the people that are kind of the naysayers of voting?
I heard that so much in the last election, that people who I love, people who I respect, people who I know who are very intelligent, who are dear friends of mine, said the parties are equally corrupt, a plague on both their houses, it doesn't make any difference. And I would get in these arguments and say, do you understand what's at stake? Everything is at stake. Our democracy is at stake. Democracy exists on a razor's edge because it exists on the participation of an educated public. We have got to be involved, and we've seen what happens when you don't get involved. This is a disaster that's going on right now in this country. 210,000 people are dead because of mismanagement of this, because we have leaders who have screwed up so badly. No other country in the world has had this bad handling of the pandemic. And this has been no one's responsible for a virus, but they're responsible for how you react to the virus. And they haven't. So everything matters. Everything matters. People who say the plague on both their houses are so wrong. They're just so wrong. I believe in Social Security. I believe in unemployment insurance. I believe in giving people a hand when they need a hand. I believe in national health care. I believe in the fact that we are a society and we have to help each other. And we have to function as a society. It's not dog eat dog. survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest means ultimately everyone eats everybody alive. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There are no
Last
survivors.
man standing kind of stuff, and that's not.
Yeah, the last man standing. Who wants to be alone? Yeah.
We need to be
So
holistic. We need to treat this as everyone has a place in society, and one is not greater than the other based on how much money
yeah,
you have.
and I know we have to have a two-party. I respect
Public servants way down
and
the hole on what they make. Teachers.
yes.
There's
And I respect the two-party system. I understand we have to have a conservative party and a liberal party. We have to have a party that says watch the purse and be conservative. And we have to have a party that says help people when they need help. We need that balance. But we're so out of balance right now that it's gotten crazy.
And I don't think that one has to be completely, that one is one side and one is the other.
No.
There, you can be fiscally aware and also help people and be fair and truthful and
Right.
give people a helping hand. And what you said is really, it's so poignant and it's so true that misfortune befalls everyone. Everyone's going to get old. Everyone's going to get sick.
Yeah.
Everyone
Yeah.
lose their job. No one is immune to any of this. What goes up must come down and vice versa. And it's the idea that we can't see beyond our own existence. It's so interesting to me when people don't believe in healthcare until they get sick or someone that they love gets sick, and maybe the person maxes out their health. All of a sudden, there's a particular senator that I won't name, but only when someone in his family maxed out their health insurance were they interested in exploring avenues for health insurance. And it shouldn't come down to that, where you have to get COVID, you have to have a loved one dying, or can't get the health care that they need. These things, we are all part of this society. There is
Right.
one that's better than another person, and everyone contributes. So we have to start looking at this holistically instead of just with a price tag.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And there we have it. Kevin, before we let you go, we always ask our guests to sign off in a way that befits them. And I know that everybody here would just go nuts if we got if Bruce Wayne
Batman send off.
Batman told us
Okay, here we go.
to go out and vote.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman. And I command you to vote.
Awesome! That was so good. Kevin,
Great.
Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you out there, we are Nerds Vote. Please make sure to visit nerdsvote.com where you can register to vote. You can check your ballot to make sure that your address is up to date. You can find out about getting an absentee ballot if you still haven't registered for one, all the things. So check out nerdsvote.com. Kevin, thank you so much. We hope to see you in
Great
person
talking
soon.
to you. Great talking to you. Good luck, everybody.
Thanks.
Vote. Vote.
Vote!
And guys, be sure to join us on Thursday at 2 p.m. because we're going to have the amazing celebrity makeup artist, Molly Roncal, come on the show. And she's going to teach me how to do my makeup. And we're going to talk about voting.
Ooh!
Yeah, somebody needs to. So join us on Thursday at 2. It'll be a great show. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Courtenay Taylor.
I'm JP Karliak.
And this is Between Two Nerds.
See you soon. Bye.
Good night.